So you might wonder. I feel a little bit awkward. So it's been quite a while that I talked for technical audience. So I do have a technical background. My partner Alex started a company 25 years ago, something like that, 25, 30 years ago, where we've a software development company where we've went full on Scrum XP. And at that time, I was quite used to talking to a more technical audience. Today, what we do is mostly talk with more management or even upper management people in the organization. And we try to advise them on more strategic issues about agility, creating a context for all of you guys. I hope a good context. We try to advise more on the strategic part of agility, but at the same time we do that in a very experiential way. So with our feet on the ground, so we use simulations, experiential learning, to allow people to experience this, so that it doesn't become something very high up in the sky. Now that being said, in a presentation, it's very hard to give people an experience, so I will need to talk a little bit in the clouds, a little bit high in the sky. So I beg your patience a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Now we need to go back a little bit before we start talking about the strategic stuff. We need to go back a little bit and align a little bit on what is agility. So what you see in front of you here on the slide, we've got an agile team that is performing some rituals and some practices. Is that agile? Is this agile?
Not necessarily.
In what sense? Not necessarily?
It's not guaranteed that they reach the objective of being agile.
Yeah. So they might be doing agile. Yeah. They might be doing the rituals.
Keeping up appearances.
Keeping up appearances. Now, especially at the level where we work, sometimes we wonder that this is what, for many people, this is what agile is. Software development teams, in many cases, are way above this level, right? But if you go to the business, I'm going to a lot of conferences, and when I hear people talk about the Agile portfolio, in many cases, it's not much more than this. Yeah? Stickies on a whiteboard, and people talking around it. Okay? Now, even if we're talking about the team level, there might be quite some discussion around this in terms of what is it that these people should be doing? Which rituals should they be doing? Which practices? What is an agile team? And you might see quite some discussion around here. Okay? At this level, what is the whole discussion today that you hear? Is it Scrum? Is it Kaplan? Yeah? Okay? What is it? So now we're talking just about the team level. Now, if we go up to this level, is this agile? If you don't recognize it, it's the SAFE poster, the Scaled Agile Framework poster. It's even an outdated one. Is this agile?
We've done well.
Yeah. So the more you scale, the more the discussion becomes very polarized. Okay? So for many people, this is not even agile. For many of the agile gurus, they've spoken out and said, like, this has nothing to do with agile. Okay? Notwithstanding, this is like the most popular scaling framework, and it has agile in the title. Okay? Yeah. But it's very well contested. So there's many more frameworks around, and SAFE, LIS. This disciplined, scaled Scrum, yeah. A lot of different perspectives on this. Yeah. And we can go a step further and look at this. So this is a representation I took from Google, from the internet, circular management with consent decision making. Is this something that is familiar to you? Sociocracy, Holacracy. I see two people nodding. So it's like self-governance. And typically this is what people do at a more strategic level. And if we talk about agility at a strategic level, this does not come from the Agile community. And this comes from completely other communities, but it's gradually finding its way in the Agile community. Yeah. Who's never heard about this? Sociocracy, Holacracy? Few people? Worthwhile to check it out. And worthwhile to check it out. Okay. So, forms of self-governance, self-governing teams. Okay. Not giving authority to people, but giving authority to circles, to roles and circles. Is this agile? Is this agile? It can be, but again, many in the Agile community don't even know this. Yeah? Many don't even know about this. Yeah? But still, it's finding its way, yeah? And it's very valuable way of looking at things. Yeah? It's a very valuable way of looking at things. So the point I want to make is this is kind of the state. I hope the slide shows well. This is kind of the state that we're in. This is agile today. Okay? This is agile today. So on the left-hand side, you see like many different perspectives. Right? You take two agile coaches. Well, if there's 5 agile coaches in the room, there's 10 opinions. Right? Okay? There's 10 different perspectives. Okay? So each of them has their own perspective. So we've got at least as many communities, and some, they all use their own favorite model, and some of these models overlap, some are complementary, and many are like more competing, and they are collaborating. Yeah. So that's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, what do we see as a result? As a result, we see coaches that either voluntarily stick to their one favorite model, but if they don't voluntarily stick to their one favorite model, they're forced to enforce the one favorite model. Which model do they need to follow? The one that was chosen by the organization in terms of this is our agile way of working. Okay? If you've ever heard about an oxymoron, the oxymoron is the standard agile way of working. Now, many agile development teams maybe are not confronted with this or are past this, but this is at the more strategic level, this is what is more the norm and it is the exception. Did I get you depressed enough? So where does this come from? Clearly this comes from doing Agile, implementing practices, the material part of Agile, sometimes very physical, very present, doing practices, and then we are very aspirational, this like the mind-body dualism, the very tangible thing of doing the practices, and then we've got the aspirational part of the Agile principles, the Agile manifesto, the Agile mindset, almost mystical, right? And it's very dual, because what we see is a lot of the practices and then a lot of talk about the principles. So this often goes hand in hand with learning by listening. Somebody like me standing in front and explaining everything. And overlook thinking. The big agile transformations, we do an assessment. We set ourselves a goal, we decide this is the model that we're going to use, and then we implement. Now, obviously, you're thinking, Patrick, you're getting too old, and we're already way beyond this, right? This is not in line, this is incongruent, this is not in line with what Agile is about, and you're right. It's not in line with what Agile is about, right? It's incongruent. Agile is about working in short iterations. It's not about a big bang transformation. So what we say we do, small iterations, and what we actually do, big bang agile transformations, that's not in line with each other. Okay? And this is in the agile industry, everybody is going into some like panic mode, saying the agile is dead. The agile industry is killing agile. And people are going back to the roots. They're going back to the upstream, to the source, and saying, we need to go back to what is essential, what is core to agile, what is really essential. And so we go back. Maybe you've heard about the heart of agile, Alistair Coburn. We go back to what is core. And core, what we consider as core, is working in small iterations, rapidly learning, right? So doing something, seeing the outcome, feedback, adapting, doing something, seeing the outcome. This is core to Agile, right? And so not only should we do this in our development, we should be doing this in terms of how we become more agile, how we are more agile. Yeah. So this goes hand in hand with not the idea of implementing practices, but with the idea of developing capabilities. Okay? It's not about the practices, and it's not even about the principles. With the principles, you don't buy a lot, right? It's about the capabilities. Yeah? So if I want to become more capable as a tennis player, yeah, it's hard to become more capable as a tennis player by hitting balls in the dark. You need feedback, right? Okay, so those two things go hand in hand. Rapid iterations in terms of seeing the outcomes of your actions and developing your capabilities. Now, what kind of capabilities are we talking about? Yeah, surely on the operational side, on the right-hand side of the slide, about delivery capabilities. Okay? Maybe that's the part that you are most involved in, right? Delivery capabilities. And delivery capabilities not only in terms of faster, better, cheaper, and not just in terms of faster, better, cheaper, but also in terms of being able to adapt to changes in demand. Okay? Because the world is not standing still, demand changes. Okay? So being able to adapt to that changing demand, right? To the fluctuating and ever variable demand. So that's on the supply side. On the demand side, it's not just sufficient to improve your delivery capabilities, you also need to become more better at shaping and creating demand, right? Okay? So yes, we can improve on the delivery side, but obviously we need to work on the demand side also. Okay? So that's in terms of the capabilities, and what sprung out of this is almost a Cambrian explosion of different ways of doing Agile, right? What sprung out of this is one way of Agile is really focusing on flow, with the influence of the lean people, lean thinking. Delivering value to the customer on a regular basis, and continuously delivering value to the customer. Okay. Is this type of picture familiar to you? Kind of, yeah. So continuously delivering value to the customer, yeah, in short steps, yeah, frequently, recognizing that there's not just development, but there's an end-to-end flow, and we need to start from the demand. And having a good flow towards the delivery and then in the delivery having a good flow. The method that focuses most on this is Kanban, right? So that's what Kanban is about. But that in itself is not sufficient, right? Okay. We don't only need to deliver frequently to the customer, we also need to know what we need to deliver, right? And so some of the methods have been starting to focus on the learning side. What constitutes value for the customer? And what is that? Who is the customer? Okay. And so we started talking about learning groups, rapid learning group. The most prominent example is the Lean Startup. Assuming everybody heard about Lean Startup? Yeah? Okay. Lean Startup, build, measure, learn, and focus on learning about the customer. But then the previous speaker was talking about Lean UX design, also doing experiments to see what is desirable for the users. Yeah. So rapid learning science. Flow, learning. So now we're done. Is there still something missing? Value flowing to the customer. We learn about what constitutes value for the customer. We're done. Well, obviously, we need teams. Okay? I'm surprised that it doesn't came up with you, but yeah. We need teams, right? We need teams to deliver that value to the customer. We want to create engagement in the organization, and not just teams of development delivery, but teams that include the business, and ultimately teams that include users. And today, if you go beyond Scrum, models like Sociocracy, Holacracy are really about that aspect, self-governing teams. Yeah. So this is it. Yeah? We've reached our destination. This is Agile. We've reached our destination. We are in the Agile Valhalla now. We've got flow, we've got collaboration, we've got learning. Yeah? Typically we think about flow at a more operational level, learning about the tactical innovation, and then the self-governance more at a strategic level. But you can just boil it all down to teams. Autonomous teams that flock like birds together to adapt to changes in the markets. This is the Agile Valhalla right there. Yeah. Are we done now? Is this the end of history? Is this the end of Agile? Is this like 10 years ago, we all talked about traditional project management? Check, we've done that. Now we can say Agile, check, we've done it. Let's move on to the next. I think it's just the beginning. Yeah? I think it's just the beginning. We're quite ambiguous about this. We are quite, as a community, we are quite ambiguous about this. As a community, on the one hand, we say, well, it's not about doing Agile, doing the practices, but it's about being Agile. Okay? But then being Agile, it's like, you are Agile or you're not Agile. Okay? It's like, you are Agile, period. It's an endpoint, it's a destination. And at the same time, what we say is, no, Agile, it's not a destination, it's a journey. Okay? Now, it cannot be both. Right? It cannot be both. It cannot be black and white at the same time. Yeah? It's either a journey, and then we should not just be focusing on the being, we should be focusing on the becoming. Okay? Or we say, no, it's not a journey, it's an end goal, it's a destination, and then we can focus on the being. Yeah? Now, I think it's a journey. Okay? If we say that Agile is adapting to a changing world, then the only way that we can focus on the being is that that world stops changing. Yeah? Do you think that the world will stop changing? I don't think so. Okay? So Agile cannot be a destination. It cannot be just about being Agile. It needs to be about continuously becoming. I hope when we talk about Agile in 10 years from now, it's going to be something completely different than what we're talking about today. Okay? I hope we can stop thinking about Agile as something bounded, but as really a living system that continuously evolves. And we can still call it Agile. So for me, that's the only future that there is for Agile. So what does that mean? Well, one thing that means is that we need to go beyond the orthodoxy. We need to go beyond the orthodoxy. Okay? Today, I hear a lot of people saying, yeah, you know what, we have these component teams or these technology teams, and we completely changed to feature teams. Yeah? Because feature teams, that is Agile. That is the Agile doctrine. That's the Agile dogma. Feature teams. Now, that's being Agile thinking. Okay? Yeah? That's orthodoxy. Yeah? That's not flexibility. Yeah? As soon as you say, I'm not saying that feature teams as a pattern that emerged out of the experience of many people, that as a pattern, feature team is not a good idea. As a pattern, it's a good idea, but it shouldn't become orthodoxy. Okay? Because as soon as it starts to become orthodoxy, as soon as it starts to become dogma, what will happen? We will start just doing it. Okay? Yeah? We will start just doing it. Yeah? It's not going to be Agile. Yeah? So, if we really want to go that step further, we need to recognize something like, I'm taking feature teams as an example. It's just an example. If we really want to go beyond that, we need to recognize feature teams as just a pattern. Yeah? Just as there are many other patterns of organizing teams. Okay? If we want to go that step further into a liquid organization, okay? A liquid organization being an organization that can adapt to the market, to the environment, to their own restrictions. Yeah? Then we need to recognize feature teams, agile component teams as multiple patterns. We need to monitor those emerging patterns and then intervene in the present. And intervene in the present and combine those different patterns to make a workable solution. Okay? It's the becoming, it's not the being that counts. So patterns are the core idea for me. Yeah? As a way of overcoming the differences. As a way of creating a deeper understanding that goes beyond the doing and the being. Yeah? Now for me, at the team level, I see a lot of dispersion, a lot of fragmentation, and people having different perspectives. But for me, the pattern that starts to emerge, that crosses whatever type of agile that you do at the team level, the pattern that starts to emerge is a pattern where, yes, somehow the team is going to restrict the work in progress so that the team creates more flow. And then through that flow, we can get faster feedback so we can learn. Okay? And through that learning, we create a high level of ownership in the team. Okay? Ownership of their purpose, of what they want to do. Yeah? Which creates more of an environment for the team to collaborate. And you know what? If the team collaborates, there's going to be more flow. Okay? Things will start flowing more rapidly. Because if teams collaborate, their work in progress goes down, so things start flowing more rapidly. To me, that's a pattern that has been very successful in terms of looking at teams, in terms of overcoming any type of polarization between two metals that I'm not going to name, to overcome any kind of polarization. Yeah? But even more than that, to start becoming more creative in the type of agility that teams teams exhibit, to help teams to become agile, and not just to be agile. Yeah. Now, it's not just about autonomous teams, although autonomous teams play an important role, and I think it's crucial for agile. But there's something more. Again, we should not be restricted. We should all open our mind. So, yes, an organization is a group of people that need to make decisions together, but an organization is also something more. Whether we want it or not, organizations are marketplaces. You've got people that come in with the demands. You've got people that represent a certain supply. Okay? And we need to match those two. Now, maybe that goes way beyond the team level, because now we're talking about multiple streams of demand, multiple streams of supply, and somehow we need to match those two. That's an organization. Now, if that matching goes well, we create lots of flow in the organization. If that matching doesn't go well, things pile up. We don't serve the customer, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if I represent that like a flow system, a canal system, we have an upstream part where we prepare the demand, right? And we express the needs of the demand in terms of tickets, where we say each of these tickets will require a certain capability to fulfill that ticket, fulfill that request. That's on the left side, on the upstream side. On the downstream side, we have capacity, capability, and that capability becomes available on a regular basis. And if it becomes available, do we have the right amount to start using that capability? And so, if you work in a project organization, on a regular basis, projects come in. People start working on those projects, capacity becomes available. Do we have the right projects to use that capacity? On the other hand, if projects come in, do we have the capacity to fulfill those projects? And that's the matching point. Same applies in the product organization. Most of the time, the product organization, the backlog is infinite, because we have more ideas. We can generate ideas more quickly than we can fulfill them. So that's considering an organization as a marketplace. Now, the interesting part of this is that we can start getting inspired by how marketplaces work, right? So, in a marketplace, if you look at the marketplace, let's say the financial market, a core concept that is used there is liquidity. So, what does liquidity mean? Well, if you have a demand side and you have a supply side, and there's lots of matching opportunities, then you can have lots of things going through. If there's few matching opportunities, then the market is not functioning properly. So if you take the top red triangles, it's a low liquidity, because we only have few demands for a lot of supply. That means that if I have an urgent demand, or no, if I have a certain supply and I want to sell my supply, I'm not going to have lots of opportunities. So if I want to sell it quickly, what do I need to do? I need to raise my price. The cost is high. The how do you call that? The blue diamonds. The blue diamonds. Again, we have low liquidity. There's lots of demand, but little supply. It's only with the purple 5 thingies that we have a good matching between supply and demand. That means that if there's a good matching, there's little cost in doing a transaction. And that's high liquidity. Does that apply to organizations? Now, in my world, this is crucial to agility. This is crucial to agility of organizations. On a strategic level, this is the crucial part. Okay? What does it mean if we translate it to organizations and to agile? It means that on the supply side, on the right-hand side, it means that we need to have lots of flexibility. We need to have lots of flexibility. We call it staff liquidity. If I have more options, if I have a certain demand, and I have more options, more different people that can fulfill that demand, then I have more liquidity. T-shaped people. Is that part strategic? That liquidity part in organizations? Is that strategic? If you've heard about the Proximus study, if you have to fire 1,400 people to hire 1,000 people because of the shift in your demand, you see that liquidity is really strategic in your organization. It's strategic for your agility. The more liquid you are, the more you can adapt to a changing environment. Now, as I said, we shouldn't only be looking at the supply side, we also need to look at the demand side. Right? Just like on the supply side, where more optionality is better, on the demand side, more optionality is also better. The more options you have, the more you can have flow in your organization. How do you create optionality on the demand side? How do you create optionality on the demand side?
MVP thinking?
MVP thinking. MVP thinking. At all times. Looking at what are small bits. What are big bits and how can we turn them into small bits? How can we create embedded options in the things that we do? How can we split things so that some things are really committed and other things are optional? So it's a continuous concern on the demand side to create optionality. Both are needed. So we talked about patterns and how patterns give us insight. I think we can also profit from using some patterns from other domains. I'm pretty enthusiastic about a guy that is called Alan Fiske, who is an anthropologist, sociologist. And he also talks about how people cooperate, how people relate to each other. How do people relate to each other? Now, the spectacular thing about Alan Fiske is that he was able to boil it down to 4 models of relationship. 4 models of relationships that, just like DNA, DNA is also based on 4 basic elements, and those 4 basic elements of DNA, they completely generate the diversity that we see in the world. Well, the same thing goes for Alan Fiske. He boils it down to 4 relationship types. And those 4 relationship types combined together, they produce all the different types of ways that people cooperate, ways that people socially relate to each other. And we have lots of diversity in the way people relate to each other. Now, those 4 relationship types are communal sharing. Communal sharing is the group is more important than the individual. So it's group identity. If I translate that to the world of work, an organizational context, corporatism, the corporate tribal, the tribalism on the corporate level, that's communal sharing. So I'm part of this organization. So authority ranking, I think I don't have to explain that. We know that very well. Hierarchy in the organization, that's a form of authority ranking. Equality matching. Equality matching is We each take our turn. Okay, if you go to the pub with a couple of people, yeah. So the first one buys the drink, the second one buys the drink, and you're not going to compare. You drank something more expensive. No, just each takes their own turn. Yeah. Okay. Democratic voting, everybody gets a vote. Yeah. Democratic voting is a good example of equality mentioned. Democratic voting, very much in the corporate, can also happen in a corporate environment. If you look at cooperatives, democratic voting is an important way of organizing. And then finally, the marketplace, market pricing, is also a way that we relate to each other, and that we organize ourselves. Obviously, we know this from the financial markets, the markets that we're all in. But for example, remuneration based on your performance is a form of market pricing. And you talk about ratios here. Okay. So those four together create a diversity of ways of organizing that we see in the world. Yeah. Now, I can apply that to like this Agile Valhalla idea, that everything is composed out of autonomous teams that are somehow aligned to each other. We can apply that model, and then we can see that something like management circles, it's still a kind of there is a hierarchical aspect to it, it's still kind of some kind of authority ranking, but it moves away a little bit from the authority ranking towards more of the other relationship types. Yeah? But it's still some kind of like we organize hierarchically. Yeah? If we talk about consent decision making, it's an equality matching mechanism. Yeah? It's an equality matching mechanism in the sense that each can take their own turn in terms of making an objection. So we can all take turns. But it's not that strict as democratic voting, because not everybody needs to use their vote. We can pass on and say, I don't have any objections. Okay. Now, if I look at the diagram, and I see that it only occupies two of the relationship types. Okay? And now I'm like that, then I start wondering, is there something missing then? Right? Is there something missing then? Well, yes, and we can also think about internal marketplaces. Yeah? If consent decision making together with management circles is a way of self-governance, does the concept of liquidity in a marketplace, does that add value to an organization in terms of becoming more agile? Does that add value in terms of becoming more agile? Yes, it did. I think it adds value. It goes way beyond the level of autonomy that we're used to in things like sociocracy. In the sense that in a marketplace, we can all make our own decisions. We can even make selfish decisions, right? It's the marketplace that ensures that in the end we create an optimum. Can we create an optimum? What could that look like in your organization? Yeah. Well, today, how is that matching between demand and supply? How is that done? Through which mechanism is that done today? How do you decide which things to do and which things not to do? Who decides? Which mechanism is used? Prioritization. Prioritization? Yeah. And in the end? Authority ranking. Yeah. In the end, authority ranking. Yeah. Can we disintermediate? Yeah. Can we disintermediate and let an internal marketplace decide? Okay? Let the spontaneous order emerge. Okay? Let the spontaneous order emerge. Now, this might be a level of agility that goes beyond your current imagination. Yeah? But that's exactly, I think, the type of thing that we need to do. We need to dream a little bit and think a little bit further. and be able to actually be creative. Be creative. Now there was still one quadrant, and I shouldn't be calling one model type that was not, that still had an empty spot. Now equality, communal sharing. Yeah. There's one very particular instantiation of communal sharing that is very relevant today, is peer production. Right? Open source, that's communal sharing. Yeah? Everybody can contribute and everybody can profit from it. Okay? But again, yeah, can that have a contribution to the agility in your organization? And I'm not talking about a specific fact that you contribute to an open source project, but the process of peer production in itself, process of peer production in itself as an organizing principle in your organization in terms of becoming more agile. Yeah? There's a whole community out there. This is like kind of the blindness in the agile community. Because you know what? Most of the agile community, how is it organized? How are the agile communities organized? Authority ranking. Certification. Ever heard about certification? What is the certification type of mechanism? It's an authority ranking mechanism. Right? So on top somewhere, there's a person that gives the blessing to other persons that give a blessing to other persons that give a blessing, and you become certified. Yeah? It's an authority ranking mechanism. Okay? Now, can we transform that into something where it's more of communal sharing and equality matching? It's more of like, we decide as a group together who is endorsed. Yeah? Who is endorsed and who is not endorsed. Okay? So the agile community has blinders in there. And there's a whole, who's heard about open cooperatives? Open cooperatives? Yeah? So there's a whole community of people that are working on alternative models of organization. Open value networks, open cooperatives, platform cooperatives. Very agile ways of organizing. Okay? Yeah? But that requires a building up, becoming agile rather than just being agile. Yeah? Building up in terms of the type of things that we take into consideration and a more balanced set of things that we can take into consideration. Okay? So for me, agile only becomes strategic when, on the one hand, it builds up, okay? From the individual level to the team level, to the organizational level, and I think way beyond that to the ecosystem level. Yeah? So in terms of building up, but at the same time in terms of deepening. Yeah? In terms of deepening, not just talking to the head, and learning by listening, not even, that's already a big step for many, yeah? Not even just by learning by experience, connecting the head and the hand, yeah? But going beyond that. Yeah? Going beyond that, learning by co-creation, yeah? Connecting the head, the hand to the heart. Yeah? So today the primary focus is on that level, yeah? Learning by experience. The mechanic part of agile practices, the orthodox part of agile, being agile, yeah? The blind gap is broadening as well as deepening, going beyond that, the integrative part of agile. Okay? Yes, there's many ways of doing agile, okay? And there's no one single way that is the right way. Okay? But at the same time, we need to find the DNA. What is the DNA that binds it all together? Okay? What is the agile DNA? Because without that DNA, we fall back into this world that we are in today, which is a very fragmented world. Yeah. Your agile is not my agile. So it's a journey. It's not a destination. Yes, I think for many, moving from doing agile to being agile is already a big step. But I think not only should we not stop there, yeah, I think it's more important to start becoming agile. Okay? When I work with organizations, I take it wherever they are. Yeah? What is their current position? What effort did they do to become more agile? What effort are they willing to do to become even more agile? For me, that's more important than the position that they are in today. I don't want to raise my finger and say, you are not properly agile. That's very paternalistic to authority liking. Yeah. And so patterns, for me, the core word that you should take home is the word of patterns. Just not just practices, not just principles, not even capabilities, but patterns that we can share, that we can recognize. Yeah? Okay? So observing the patterns and then recognizing them as patterns, not as dogma, to help us make the connections, and then at the same time going beyond that and looking at interlocking patterns that can generate the diversity. The DNA of Agile. What is the DNA of Agile? Okay? What allows it to create diversity and continue to create that diversity and evolve. So, to my analysis, core building blocks are flow, creating continuous value to the customer, collaboration, working together, and then learning in terms of finding out what customer value means. Those are core elements, and my experience today is that out of those four elements, we can create a large diversity of different ways of doing Agile that are still connected to each other. Yeah. The examples that I gave are autonomy as a way of combining collaboration and learning, and liquidity as a way of combining flow and collaboration. And both are important for strategic agility. Now, it's the experience that counts. Yeah? So I can rationally talk about this to you and try to rationally explain it to you. The mind works also through patterns. If these are not patterns that you already recognize, then you will interpret them in your own mental patterns. And you will say, yeah, Patrick, you know what? For liquidity, we are already a liquid organization. Yeah? We already do that. Or like a marketplace, I don't think that we can organize ourselves as a marketplace. That's not something for us. Yeah? That goes beyond what is possible. Yeah? Somebody needs to decide. Okay? So I can try to rationally explain it, and you will interpret it in your own terms. I can only invite you to experience it, yeah? To really experience it. So this is my little book. Yeah? That's why we created Agile Track, to allow people to go through this small experience, to feel it for themselves. With that, I want to thank you for your kind attention.